welcome you all again back to this evening that we have. So, good evening, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Happy to have you here for the UX Explorer 2022. And it gives us a great pleasure to invite you all for the spectacular event UXplorer Design Con 2022, which is loaded with ideas, innovations, and extraordinary design thinking. There are several reasons why this ninth year of UXplorer is so special for us. Firstly, the theme, digital wellness. It's a topic we are all familiar with, and we struggle with digital addiction every day, yet we are happy in our own digital worlds. We wake up with a notification and turn onto a phone for every smile or details which are there. But the fact has sunk in that something needs to be done. We cannot go on like this forever. And need had come to hold our life before we are submerged in the old digital overload. The second important reason is a global participation that we have. We are happy to receive such an overwhelming numbers of submissions from different parts of the world. The registrations have more than doubled this year, with countries like Egypt, Canada, France, Sri Lanka, China, Italy, and Japan. And last but not the least, our esteemed jury members who are here. And our first jury member is our founder and CEO, Samir Chabukswar, who is a business pillar of YUJ Designs. Samir has nearly 3 decades of experience in design of man-machine system and processes. He has empowered multi-domain Fortune 100 and 500 companies to establish UX practices from strategy to design to market. Our second jury member is Prasadd Bartakke, our co-founder and chief mentor at UX Designs. Prasadd has been informing design through research from more for last 2 decades so far, and he has been mentoring design teams globally to achieve leadership while fostering a culture of UX empowerment. We have with us Lourd Nathan, our Chief Design Officer, the third jury member for UXplorer 2022. Lourd has worked with global clients and has helped them navigate through challenging business environment with his design thinking process. We would further like to welcome our fourth jury member, Elizabeth Benker, the head of design from Trifacta at Alteryx, who joined the design leaders in this quest for finding the winners of UXplorer 2022. Elizabeth has been helping companies build design teams and launch human-centered design in her last 2 decades of career as a UX expert. She has helped over 50 companies flagship design products that made people's life much more better. Our fifth jury member is Jason Holmes. He's a UX manager in Schlumberger and a leader in human-centered innovation. Jason employs design thinking methods to deliver business values across projects and complex use cases. So we welcome you all, jury members, and thank you all for giving your precious time and presence. So before we begin our UXplorer Designer Con 2022, we would like to know from you, Elizabeth, how has it been to be a part of UXplorer 2022?
It's been wonderful. I've really appreciated the opportunity to see ideas from students all over the world, and especially in how we can solve and address the issue of digital overwhelm and digital overload. So I've been really proud and privileged to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to this evening.
Yeah, we are also happy to have you with us. And before we move forward, it will be great to know from all our jury members what do they think about our today's theme, that is of digital wellness. So, Elizabeth, if you can shed some light about our today's theme.
I really thought the theme was spot on. I think the awareness of how technology is starting to encroach on our well-being is really timely and incredibly important, and one in which design, I think, is uniquely empowered to address. So I thought it was a really, really great meaty challenge, as well as something that will help contribute to the entire world's well-being if we can crack the nut.
Yeah, very rightly said. Like, it's a problem of not just a nation or two nations, it's a global problem that we're trying to address, and it's going to go bigger and bigger and bigger with time. So Jason, would you like to add something about it?
Sure. This topic it took me back to my academic days. In the late 90s, we called it information overload, and it was not near as bad as it is now, and it was bad then. So it's very interesting to see. It's kind of it was a problem, and then it kind of internet bubble and social media, and it just blew up. So that it's like we don't even feel the pain of being overwhelmed with information anymore, and that's probably not a good thing. So I'm very interested to be part of the panel today and talk about this topic and talk more about these projects. They were really good.
Thank you, Jason. So Prasad, we would like to hear from you about our theme.
Yeah, well, when I heard wellness, of course, one of the things that came to my mind was, well, digital overload. Everyone is speaking about it. And as a design thinker, we always looked at problems and we solved the problems. But this one was something where it is an opportunity where we don't look at the problem at all and do something else. So take the user there rather than clearing the mess that we are already in. So there's a big component called contemplation that I have, whether to solve that problem through digital means or something else. And that's a big opportunity for design thinkers. So let's see how it goes over the next few years. How do we really solve this problem?
Can't agree more. Like, which exactly tool to use? Is it the same digital tool which is ideally creating the problem, or you figure out some other tools to ideally solve this problem? So, yeah.
Yeah.
So Samir, over to you. What are your thoughts about the theme?
I think this problem is really appropriate to be solved by the next generation, and that's the reason it has been focus of the 9th UXplorer. Let me begin by thanking both our jurors from overseas, Jason as well as Elizabeth, because I know it's quite an involved process, but they did kind of do a great job. So let's have a round of applause for them. I feel that in terms of digital wellness, this problem has been exacerbated because of the pandemic as well, right? And it has come to fore, which is a good thing. But if I turn back and look at what technology is really supposed to be doing, actually technology is kind of creating these things with behavior change of people, right? In the old days, when we did not have technology, right, digital wellness in general as a concept was being taken care by families, right, and the culture. So I think I would look at what is the digital culture that we are developing, and why is there a need for going a layer up and saying now we have to really fight technology to de-addiction or pull it back. So what is the culture that we are developing through design for these digital technologies is a good topic that we should be thinking about.
I can't agree more to that. Like, especially because of COVID, things have amplified much more than what it was expected, and we have suddenly got into a lot of digital exposure because of a lot of the companies moving to digital era, and we didn't have anything else other than our phones to help us out to go through that difficult times. So it would also good to know from you, Jason. What do you think about like you mentioned, there was an information load overload earlier, and then there is an information overload right now also. It's a very similar condition 10 years or 20 years back, and it's still the same. But how do you feel is the role of design in terms of addressing it out from a digital wellness perspective? How critical would be the role of design in addressing it?
Yeah, I think there was an observation back in it was in the 60s or the early 70s at IBM, and um, they realized and said the problem is not too much information, it's too few tools to deal with the information. And this is where I think we as designers have an opportunity to step up. We are not going to constrain the amount of information. We don't want to constrain the amount of information, right? That we would all think this is bad if we actually started to see actively constraining information. But now we have to deal with it, and you deal with that by, in my mind, making information as relevant to people as possible. This to me is the key to digital wellness. It's not that I need to unplug completely from social media, although I've heard worse ideas, but you need to be able to manage your input better than we allow right now. Right now, everyone is just grabbing for attention. And as long as we kind of stay in that greedy mindset of kind of marketing and gamification and stickiness, it's going to be really hard to confront that with, hey, maybe we need to pull back a little bit and think about how much information we're trying to give people. So I think we're up against powerful forces that are invested in getting as much attention from people as possible and monetizing that in any way they can. And digital wellness is definitely going to have to push back against big trends. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Jason, I did recently came across a research paper where it rightly talked about the upcoming years of the decade that we are in right now. It's more about attention economy. People or the apps, if you see the big techs over here, the majority of their cash flows are happening from the attention that they have across the different set of users. So it's very difficult to ideally do a very counterintuitive exercise of ideally trying to solve it out when they're big companies ideally want to get more and more attention from the user. So rightly mentioned to that. So we would also like to know from you, Samir. Okay, we have Lourd with us. Hey, hi, Lourd. Good evening. What do you think? How close are we for in terms of solving this puzzle of digital wellness?
So, Speaker, I think this is. I think this would be a very initial baby step, and YUJ sponsoring this initiative. It's really an important milestone. What I really feel is, a lot of people, a lot of students had come with a lot of different ideas, different thought process, different initiative, right? So that's something really creative, and how to solve this, kind of a problem that kids are going through, the challenges that parents are going through, right? So we see a lot of distractions, like a lot of content, lot of things that kids, youths, individuals in different organizations, because of digital wellness, a lot of people are going through trouble, right? So I've seen, because I come from a psychology background, I get to hear and the community speak about the issues and challenges, right? So I think we are just thinking, and we are in the first step, but I think this is it's like putting a seed for the future digital wellness initiatives. And I think a lot of great ideas, really fantastic ideas to solve some problem. But I think, how do we really continue this, right? How do we really make sure the people who have participated, who had a lot of ideas, how do they really convey that to people, right? How do they take it to various different colleagues and friends and neighbors? Like, how do they share that idea? How do you solve this problem, right? Because it's not going to be solved within like maybe a month or so. It's going to be like for years. It will take. How do you solve? So I think we have just put a seed. I think this is a baby step that from huge side, and especially for India market, I think this is very, very critical. So yeah, look forward for these products to be matured and going into market.
Yeah, totally agree to that point. I think, Lord, I'm also very happy to be a part of an organization which has taken this bigger initiative so forward, because this problem has been there for last almost a decade. A lot of people have been talking about in big techs also, but no one took an initiative of idly trying to solve it out. So I'm happy that you rightly took up that small initiative, like you rightly mentioned. It's a small seed that has been planted. It might go bigger. People might think about it, talk about it, discuss further and further and further. So now moving on to the next part, like we mentioned, there's a lot about problem solving that could be done, design that could be created. And it's a very complex problem to have. So how do we make sure, Samir, especially this question is for you, how do we make sure that we can bring in mindfulness into design? And when we talk about mindfulness at the same time, how do we make sure it is measurable?
So let me quickly touch upon the seed that Lourd mentioned. One of the benefits of participating in UXplorer is that if you have a great business plan, YUJ is open to fund that plan as well, right? So we have done that in the past. This is the 9th year, so we have done that for few people in the 5th, 6th year. So that's another benefit one can get. So if there are brilliant ideas, let them come and we can put the money, so they become a reality. To your question, Speaker, mindfulness into design, and is it really measurable? See, if you look at what is really happening today, it's kind of a device addiction, right? And if we start defining what addiction really means, for example, it's a habit maybe that has a negative impact on human life, then it is measurable. Then it is measurable by the time not spent on other important activities, or procrastination, or other markers of good mental health or deteriorating mental health, so on and so forth, right? So once it is measurable, these parameters can be used as design principles. Just like, for example, right, you try your Apple iPad and your password goes wrong for 3 or 5 times, they won't let you access to enter the password for 1 hour, right? So some designer thought about using security as a design principle, right? Similarly, if we can have these different contours about wellness, saying, for example, and this may come into reality in the future, but the Z generation, latest generation, won't like this. For example, if they find that you are using your device for too long, it switches off automatically, and then you can't turn it on for a certain time. How about that, right? That's an extreme step, but something of that sort today. I think there are attempts by large companies and some companies to really focus on digital wellness. So something pops up on your screen saying, hey, you've been sitting too long, just take a walk, stretch up, and things like that. So there are some aspects of these design principles coming on to human behavior, but design is driving ultimately the behavior. And today, the design of these apps, the phones, the devices, it has become, to such an extent that they have really become addictive. And as Jason mentioned, right, it's not about anymore about how do you not, look at information or limit information. It's about optimizing the information, receipt for the users and for human beings.
Yeah, rightly mentioned about the point about optimizing information when there's so much of information across. But you also mentioned about a couple of points around technology, like about different products, because especially when you're talking about experiences, when we are talking about services or solution, tech or ideally plays a very vital role. And so Prasad, this question is ideally for you. How do we make sure to build an adaptive experience? How important is it to build an adaptive experience?
Yeah, so yeah, before I go to that, I wanted to connect to what Samir said. A very interesting thought about some kind of a standard towards baking in wellness into our designs, and designs could be not just limited to devices. Just like how we have accessibility, right? And people are so particular about accessibility, or people are now talking about sustainability. I think wellness needs to be baked in, and not just about, oh, you are so many hours into social media, but imagine when you're operating in B2B, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours at work, without having to tell, hey, you are overworked, can the design enable them to feel happy about work, right? That could be something for designers in B2B, and we are all doing so much of B2B work. Anyway, to come back to your question about, you mentioned adaptive design or adaptive experiences. Of course, it is important, but I feel today it's the concept of adaptive design is extremely limited to mobile design and web design, right? Especially when we are all talking here about UX design and digital interfaces. But if you look at the word adaptive, imagine you're talking to a customer representative in person or on phone. Maybe you're dealing with, buying vegetables online, or you're standing in McDonald's. From there, when you're out of that system, you're touching, digital interface. Maybe you're getting into an experience which is a physical space. Maybe thereafter, there is a certain service that you are looking forward to as a response. And imagine thousands of people who are running the systems. Can there be a real seamless experience that the customer gets? And today, everyone knows that is something that is not baked in, because everyone is looking at it in isolation, right? Product managers or product designers, they are still looking at digital interfaces, or businesses are not really taking the bird's eye view of saying, hey, how can this end-to-end really be taken care? To make the problem little more bigger problem, I think by AI, we are trying to plug the hole. That AI will give you some information and which will enable you to be little more smarter. But I think it's going to also take out the human element from there, because AI is going to again spoon feed you with information which you will probably mug up and say, and really take out the human experience. So I feel it's time that the design community influences the businesses raise to the occasion, saying that this is real design thinking of keeping the end-to-end experience in mind, and together really make the world much more better, connecting back to the wellness, so that I don't get overwhelmed by moving from one system to another, or from service to physical space to digital space. Yeah.
Yeah. So rightly mentioned, Prasad. So I think there's also a shift in trend from a responsibility that the designers, we as designers are also taking up, from just focusing from a user experience perspective, taking like one level up, getting into service design, system design. I'm exactly what you already mentioned about. How do we think at a system level and make sure that things are connected? Those that might be like a smaller nodes of user experience that we are creating, but at a system level, how do you make it very seamless? So very rightly mentioned, and I like you also mentioned that technology might ideally enable you out, but there might be a little bit more thinking that we as designers might have to put in to give it a human touch to the technology. So yeah, very well mentioned about that. So okay, so the stage is all set, the jury is all ready, and the digital wellness is already in the air. So let's before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the role of different design institutes that extended their support and ensured maximum participation of students in the biggest design challenge, UX Explorer 2022. I request Samir and Prasadd to say a few words in honor of our guest and esteemed jury members. Over to you, Samir.
So a big thank you to all the jury members, including ourselves. We are all busy, and I know that getting time to really look at each and every entry that or submission, and looking it from the spectrum of all the user experience principles, and the and the thing that was submitted earlier, maybe the criteria, right? It's a real challenge, and through these challenges, I think there is also, I can speak for myself. I've been doing this jury thing for the last eight years now, and really I have also learned a lot through how do you really evaluate, right? And you have to have a certain standard of yourself. When you say consistency or you say methods applied, you have to look at it from the perspective of what is the topic, how have they done it in a certain way. It may not be the way that we do it or we practice it, but there is certainly a user centeredness that they bring in through multiple means or the limited means that they have. So you have to understand those constraints as well, and then that sets a standard. Otherwise it will be all over the place, right? And this time I have found that most of the jury members, after the evaluation, we were all like, the variance was pretty less, which kind of tells me a story that everyone is not at all expert or equally experts. One of the two, right? So we'll take the latter. So I'd like to really thank all the jury members, especially Jason and Elizabeth, both of them.
Prasad, we would love to hear from you as well.
Oh yeah, it's always a fun, and when I say fun, in a serious way, that it's always nice to see how the world outside is shaping in the realm of design. And every year the quality of output and the submissions is going up. And I'm extremely happy for that, because we know there's a big dearth of design, or user experience design talent out there, and those who could influence the industry. And most of our winners, especially, have not left any stone unturned to really do the right thing and attempt to understand the core problem. Because it's very easy to look at dribbles and Behances of the world and say, oh wow, that UI looks good, so let me start with that. And then your focus completely gets onto UI design and not really the core problem. So I've always looked at that. In some cases, I think last year we had a submission where they did not had any digital user interface. And that tells a story that people are looking at the core, and that's what I've always enjoyed evaluating. And then evaluation really becomes fun because then you're being challenged to look at what problem they're being solving. So it's always fun. So congratulations to all the winners. Collaborating with the juries was always nice, and I'm looking forward to more entries next year. I know the workload goes up, but it's always nice to learn from them.
Yeah. Thank you, Samir. Thank you so much, Prasadd. Congratulations to all the team. Yep, you have really done a great job, and we are happy to have you all over here. So, can we have some claps, some hearts everywhere of the teams? Please do that. Team has worked very hard to get through this. So, a round of applause to them. Okay, so let's move with our first award. That is, let's begin with the special mention award that we have. Then the award goes to Nan and Bin from Osaka University, Japan, for their outstanding app called Undo. The app informs users of their break time every 25 minutes and provides a puzzle for them to relax with a low impact and a light exercise. Let's hear it from them. Come on, Nan and Bin.
Thank you for the great introduction, and hello everyone. My name is Ngan, and my teammate is.
My name is Ben.
Yes, and we're all students living here and studying in Japan. I currently living in Osaka, but Bing is in Tokyo right now. So first of all, thank you so much for holding such a great event, and we want you to know that we're very honored to be here. And so the project we want to show you today is called Undo app, and this app is meant to promote digital wellness through mindful engagement, especially for people who work or study from home. And so before we move on to the project, we want to share with you our take on the definition of digital wellness. So next slide, please. So as we all know, digital wellness can mean different things to different people. It can simply mean reducing your amount of screen time, or just completely turn off your device and reconnect with the physical world around you. But we generally believe in the saying that everything is in moderation. So to us, digital wellness is a moderate and mindful engagement with the digital world. And if we can build this kind of relationship with our digital devices, then we can find our own peace of mind, and we will be able to balance our digital consumption with our own well-being. So next, Bing will brief us on the project overview and the scientific background of our project.
Okay. So regarding our project, we call our product the UNDO. In English, it's pronounced undo, but in Japanese, we call undo. Undo means like taking an exercise or moving the body a little bit. So originally, the idea of this gamified app comes from the Japanese game show called Hole in the Wall, where players must contort themselves, like have themselves making a pose to fit through the puzzle on the wall. And the problem that we are trying to solve is like during the pandemic, we might think that working from home or telework will contribute to increasing the work performance. This is true, but not 100%. Based on the data from the Japan COVID-19 and Society Internet Survey, like study on like 15,000 workers, telework both improve and worsen the performance. In this study, the main outcome was like the change in the work performance after the COVID-19 pandemic compared with the before the pandemic. And the result showed that the change of the work environment from the pandemic decreased work performance in 15% of workers, which was like 5 times higher than the number of workers reporting increased performance. And even though the telework both improved and worsened the performance, sitting for the long period of time was significantly associated with worsened performance. And in Japan, it's reported that like every three people, there is one person who is lack of physical activities. We call that undo busoku. And these problems in terms of decline in both health and work performance raise the questions on how can we promote the short period of time of physical activities without the need of going to the gym or taking a long jogging. How can we remind the user in a gentle way to take not only the short but also the fun exercise? Our group is trying to utilize the method called Pomodoro. The Pomodoro is a time management tool that involves 25 minutes working on studying with the 5-minute break between. And scientifically, the human body and the brain are designed to work in the cycles. And after a period of around 90 minutes of hard working and full concentration, the focus, ability, and the energy will decline. This is considered as the psychological tiredness, which signal the body need to take a rest. So by structuring the work in the short sprint of active work, followed by a few minutes of rest, it will naturally boost the focus and help the people accomplish more. In the current market, there are a few well-known mobile applications utilizing Pomodoro methods, which, for example, the Forest app. So our approach is that instead of going to a serious approach, trying to bending or changing the habit of the user, our approach is to create an intriguing gamifier application which can both utilize the Pomodoro method and encourage the user to take the exercising. And in the next slide, Ngang will explain the detailed solution of our product.
Okay, so thank you, Bing, for sharing a lot of the scientific rationale behind our project. So based on all the research that we have done, we finally came up with a solution that is to provide our users with a rewarding and relaxing exit point. And in this solution, it has two characteristics. The first one is that our users can set Pomodoro, and it means that they can the app will remind them to take a break every 25 minutes, and this will provide users a very clear exit point with a sense of completion, because it will tell them that they have worked hard for 25 minutes and they deserve to take a break. And that's when they can choose for themselves whether they want to take a break or continue to do their work. And this will not only increase their quality focused time, but it will also help them to be more mindful about their digital consumption. And the second characteristic is that user have to move their body during the break, because the app will provide a fun puzzle game for users to play during the break. And this will not be the heavy exercises that need a lot of equipment like you see in the gym, but instead it will be a very light and low impact exercise that anyone can do. And by using simple stretches and even yoga poses, even kids or children can lightly enjoy the app. And this will relax and refresh not only their body, but also their mind. The next thing we want to share with you is our user personas. So as students, we have spent a lot of time studying online in the past 2 years, and we've all experienced that Zoom fatigue and headaches and brain fatigue over the last few years. But we also want to listen to real experiences from our Japanese friends and people around us. So we actually use made-up names and pictures for their personal privacy. But as you can see, this app caters specifically towards the people who have to work from home for a very long period of times. It can be a programmer who has to sit for long hours, and he can feel very tired, but he still has to do his work. So it's very hard to leave the desk. Or it can be a high school student who spend over 10 plus hours for online classes. Or it can be an office lady who feels very sedentary, but she doesn't know what to do. And based on these personas, we have finally finalized our design objectives in the next slide. Yes, so we have 3 design objectives. The first thing is, like we said before, is to provide an exit point to remind users to disengage from the digital world with a sense of completion and relaxation. And we also want to combine the strength of Pomodoro and the fun physical activities through the form of a puzzle. And we want our app to be easily incorporated into the user's working routine. So here's our final products. To explain the user flow, it's actually very simple. First, user set their Pomodoro session and concentrate for 25 minutes. When the Pomodoro session ends, the alarm will ring and the puzzle will pop up, and they can decide to play or not to play. But when they are in the game, what they need to do is try to make poses and stretch their body so that their body fits into the puzzle. And after the game ends, they can reset the alarm and repeat the process. And finally, on the achievement screen, you can see that there's a daily recording of how many times user have used the app, and they can choose the level accordingly to their physical skills. Yes. And this is our final mock-up. And I want you to know that after the competition, we have tried to think about many ways to brush up the design. And now we're thinking about having a multiplayer mode. And for that, people can play with their friends and their families, and they can take turn to solve the puzzle instead of playing alone like right now. And through this way, they can create a community, and this can also provide user an eccentric motivation, and they can grow healthy habits together. And the second thing we want to improve is that we want to put more gamified elements into this app, like having a story throughout the game, or users can use their burnt calories so that they can transform that into points to buy something or upgrade their avatar, or buy items within that game. So that are 2 things that we want to work more in the future. So that is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Narendra. It was such a beautiful presentation. And I really love the fact that you didn't stop thinking about the problem. I think we have talked a lot. All the jury members really talked about how big the problem is. And it is just the start of the whole bigger problem that we're trying to solve. I really love both of you guys in terms of not stopping with respect to the ideas that you're giving, but also keep on thinking of how we can make it better. Like the whole aspect about adding an extrinsic motivation factor to ideally be able to do that extra part. How do the user do that extra step? By having that extensive motivation into it. So great job on that part. So the design never stops. It keeps on evolving and iterating. So yeah, great job on that part.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we would like to know from you, Elizabeth, what do you think about the work that these guys have done?
I really, I thought it was I love the focus of the app. You know, it's really very precisely defined, and it's pinpointing a specific issue and coming up with a really creative and fun way to get people to move. Personally, I'd never encountered the idea of having people, you know, make their body into the shapes of the animal, and the app kind of scoring and you know, providing that framework. So it's really fun. And you know, I think that it would help people to be excited to actually take a break, because, you know, what shape am I going to be presented with next? And I think the visuals of the app also reflect that playfulness and sense of fun. So I think you really pulled through conceptually the spirit of the app in the visuals as well, which is a really nice tight lockup.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Rightly mentioned. Just a random thought around it. I think it'll be good to see your things implemented in business meetings. Right? It's going very longer and longer and longer. You want to have a quick break, and if people could have fun and just come back to the topic back again. So yeah, really innovative idea on that part. So the team has also had a lot of questions on their side. So we would ideally try and address those questions. It would be great if the jury could ideally answer that out. So the first question is to you, Prasadd. What is your advice for people who are self-teach UX?
Yeah, we have seen that probably because designers or would-be designers were more keen of doing something with the problems rather than the institutes, because we saw academics came in pretty late in most places across the world, and hence people were looking at, let me teach myself UX. Um, but the thought and my observation for the last 10-15 years has been that, yeah, it's like reading a book, right? Yeah, imagine you read the book Journey to the Center of the Earth, right? You really get excited about it. You can talk about it, but you will be having tough time demonstrating things. So it's also very similar to being a lawyer or a surgeon. Unless and until you have practiced it, uh, you will not be respected for what you bring to the table. So good, you can teach yourself UX, but I would strongly encourage people to get the fundamentals right, put the fundamentals into practice, see the outcomes, let people acknowledge the value that you have delivered. Um, and that means the real users saying, yes, it made a difference in my life. And the businesses say that we were able to add value to the end users. And that would not just happen by saying, okay, I'm going to explore UX by myself. So one has to really put in that meditation that you need to read, put it in practice, and see the outcomes and let the world validate it, so that it's not like self proclaimed, oh, I'm a UX designer, but there's no feedback as such from the businesses and the users. So that's my suggestion.
So just adding on to that, Prasad, I think one more very critical thing when it comes to self-learning and learning under someone's guidance is the time that you take in terms of learning and growth is exponential, because you have a guidance in terms of what will go wrong and what will go right. And I think that's a very key difference which comes into place when you have a guru in place, when there is someone to tell you what is right and what is wrong, which could even happen in your own experience. Well, that'll take a lot of time. You might have to do 10 things, out of which 9 might be wrong and 1 might be right. And that's how you learn about it. But in the other case scenarios, you're just growing on the shoulders of your guru or your teacher or your mentor or your facilitator. That is a place where it makes a lot of difference. And just highlighting when we talk about this specific part, I think one more thing which I really love about UX is the WOW program that we've widely done, which ideally is based on the same pillar, where we have a set of facilitators. I would not say mentors per se. It's more about facilitators to guide the team in a manner and grow with the tools that we have. I think that's also one of the initiatives that I think we are one of those design firms who are doing it in terms of growing and nurturing our designers to become better designers with time. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the next question for Jason. This question is for you, Jason. The question is, gamification is a trend right now. What makes a gamified app more successful?
Yeah, I may not be the best person to answer this, but I'll take a stab at it. I mean, I work on enterprise products. I don't get to do fun gamification stuff usually, but here's what I think we have to be careful about with gamification. When done successfully, it is highly successful. And there are lots of survivor stories of gamification that's been successful. Once you're around for a little while, you see a lot of lame gamification. Those don't get stories written about them. So you have to be very careful about how you apply it. And you also have to keep in mind what really gamification is about is you are playing with people's brain chemistry, fundamentally is what you're doing. So that is a powerful tool / weapon that you want to be careful with. So before you just start like throwing badges around, really consider, is this the best use of gamification? I don't want to be a lame gamification. I want to be an effective one. So don't just kind of make it your go-to move. However, I would say the broader sort of family of methods that gamification falls into is behavior design. Much more interesting area than just limiting yourself to gamification. So we in UX, we are modifying people's behavior with our designs. That's what we do. So I would think about it in terms that are much broader than just gamification. I would think about everything we do in terms of behavior modification. How are we changing the way people see the world, interact with the world, interact with our products, and interact with each other? This is a much more interesting topic to me than gamification.
Yeah, Jason rightly mentioned that ideally gamification is like a subset of a larger bucket called behavior design. And I think the theme also that we have right now, it's very much aligned to that, where we're trying to change a behavior, but at the same time, we might have to be a little bit more mindful. And that's a part where ethical design might also play a critical role. That also is something that is coming into a lot of notice where people talk about ethical design, which is ideally aligned to your behavior design too. We have a next question. The next question is for Samir, so it's for you. UX design is getting more and more popular, which also means more competition. So how do we stand out as a designer?
Okay, before I answer that, let me first congratulate Bin and Nan. You've taken a problem of fatigue at work and addressed it well through Pomodoro, your concept, and that is wonderful. What I've observed as human behavior is actually the WhatsApps of the world and some distracting applications are the Pomodoro these days that are an interruption to work, right? So every 10-15 minutes, somebody looks at that, they get distracted for 1 minute, 2 minutes, right? And then all their focus goes away. So that's the real addiction. My question to you is, did you consider this behavior? Have you thought about this behavior as, the addiction and for solving the wellness problem here?
So thank you for your question. Actually, we are the users of Pomodoro ourselves, and at first, it's very tempting to, look at the clock and see how many time has passed. But it's the thing about digital wellness is that you need to be aware of how much time you have spent on the digital world. So we were thinking about how can we, inform the users, in a circle, in a cycle. And with that thoughts going on, we started doing research. And even though Pomodoro, like you said, it can be distracting, but if we use that probably and we think to ourselves that, okay, we will focus in the next 25 minutes and then we move on to the next thing. So it's like we need to rewire our brain a little bit because right now there's so many distracting things, not only Pomodoro. We really wish that by incorporating Pomodoro and exercise, people can truly focus on what they do and then fully exercise and then focus again.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for your answer. So the question was UX design is getting popular and how do we stand out as a UX designer? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Samir.
Okay. So getting popular is the problem and standing out is also a problem.
Actually standing out when we're trying to find a job.
See, that you can easily do if the goals or objectives are not to be popular or to jump on the bandwagon. I think India is probably the second largest supply of designers today in the world. And what we've seen over the years, and of course it is true with other geographies as well, we are interviewing people in US as well, because of the popularity, the mediocrity has increased, right? Because everybody is jumping and just by doing a 10-day course or 15-day book reading, everybody who touches a screen is a UX designer, right? So my real advice to stand out is to always start making an impact by design on human experiences. So if that's the goal, there's no need to stand out. Very easily you can stand out, and if you want to get a job, that will be much easier than people who are just focusing on UI rather than UX.
Yes.
Because ultimately UX is what's going to lead you to real results. And And of course, I mean, there is a caveat that you have to appeal to the right buyer as well. Otherwise, if they don't understand UX, you will be, banging your head against the wall. But really, in reality, you have to think about what's the impact of your design on human lives, and that will take you farther than anything else.
Yes, thank you for your advice.
Yes, Ami rightly mentioned about it's a very critical part, focusing more on the impact rather than the whole process, the whole impact that we're trying to try to design that becomes very critical. Okay, so thank you so much, Nan and Ben. Thank you so much for walking us through your presentation. Thank you so much. Again, congratulations, guys, for such a great work.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next category, we have Browns, and the Browns winners are Ruchira Borade and Suchir Sharma for their digital wellness app called Out. It aims to reduce digital load and motivates users to adopt healthy habits. And now let's hear it from them. Ruchira and Suchir, over to you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the jury as well as YUJ team for this. Okay, so we'll start with the presentation. Good evening, everyone. This is Ruchira and Suchir. We are here to present our submission for UXplorer 22. We started the project with understanding the brief and preliminary research to map out the key points and trends so that we can funnel down into common themes. Now, based on those themes, we created a hypothesis to start with our secondary research. Using a tailored design process that included the work on strategy as well as visual elements of design through primary and secondary research, we analyzed the users with customized tools of user activity and user survey as well as persona. Based on this, we found that when users feel lonely, depressed, anxious, or stressed, they use phones or the internet more often as a way to relieve burden or even feel connected to others and the world. Using the internet more often, though, increases stress, FOMO, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy, dissatisfaction, and isolation. In turn, these feelings negatively affect their mood and worsen the symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress. These worsening symptoms cause them to use their phone even more often. So, the downward spiral sort of content. After a thorough research and user study, the statement that we found was, how might we create an experience that motivates our user to adopt an intentional and healthy relationship with technology in order to pursue digital wellness in both their workspace and in personal life? Going on with the next phase of the project, we started with connecting the design opportunities with the problem statement that we had derived. Then followed the ideation phase where numerous unfiltered ideas were jotted down. Raw ideas were then developed into concept which were feasible and could be molded into a final product. The concept was then given a final shape, structure, and a purpose. We came up with an app as the final concept and further developed it using tools like AEIOU framework, service blueprint, business model canvas, and information architecture. Our aim with Out was to solve the user-centric problems we dribbled down to in our research. While we analyzed a lot of apps in our market research, there was a huge gap in the existing solutions. Majority of the apps which exist in the market work on cutting down on screen time by time management, restriction of apps, and provide reminders. But they were either discontinued or deleted by a user. Like we mentioned in our research, that people want to have a digital healthy outlook, but it's hard to adhere due to lack of stimulants as good as the ones that the internet is providing us. Our solution works on reinforcing good behavior. It will provide rewards on portraying good behavior in terms of digital wellness, an incentive which will keep the brain occupied, removing its defenses and providing an opportunity to plant the seeds of new habits. This would work towards cutting down of unnecessary screen time, and give a chance for our users to rejuvenate and engage in the real world. The users sign up and put their personal information as well as their general preferences. User finds places and activities based on their interests and curiosity. They book a slot for the activity. They check out with the standard coupons available for the first time users. They arrive at the location and communicate with their facilitator to start their time bank. They learn new skills and meet new people, spend time with their loved ones, and spend quality time away from digital spaces. They clock out with the facilitator and check how many points they have in their time bank. They redeem those points to get more coupons and offers to try new experiences or create habits. Each time they use the app to try new experiences, they are rewarded within the app that prompts them to use it more often. While onboarding, the user selects their interests and preferences that helps us offer them a personalized choice of service. The user gets a wide range of hobbies, skills, and activities to choose from. While choosing, the user gets crucial information like day and time of the activity, price and available seats for the booking. The user can then select their preferred settings and book the activity. Next slide, please. After clocking out, the user gets rewards based on time spent and the image they have uploaded. They can then use those rewards to redeem various coupons to use on their upcoming bookings. The image and reviews uploaded by users will be used to make a trusted database that others will be able to choose according to that. So on that note, we would like to sum up our presentation. Thank you so much. Hope you liked it.
Thank you, Ruchira. Thank you, Suchita. Congratulations again. We can see
Thank
the
you.
product also evolving. I think we talked about gamification to some extent, and now we can see that coming out in your products also. So yeah, great work. Congratulations again for all your hard work. So let's hear it from let's hear about their project from Jason. Would you like to share your thoughts, your experience when you evaluated their project?
Yeah, sure. I thought this was obviously an award-worthy product. I think I really like the name. The name kind of stuck with me a little bit. I was kind of immediately intrigued by the name. So nice job just on the first 4 letters of your project. The app itself is very well done, and I think your research that you did that suggested just turning stuff off is probably not sufficient, or maybe it may work for certain personality types, but your approach of sort of a substitute, right? Bringing let's get off of virtual world and get into real world, I think was really well founded and is the foundation of what could be a really good idea. Here's where I think you have a challenge. I don't think people are going to open your app. So you're going to have to figure out how you can intercept people when they're in heavy use of the 15 other apps that they're trying to break. It was difficult for me to figure out how they are going to find your app and what's the trigger to use it. And I'm afraid that trigger may never come. So I think the app in and of itself is really good. I think your research is good, but I think this is your challenge is you've got to figure out how you're going to get people to your app.
That is a very valuable input. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Jason, we have some more questions for our jury member. This next question is for you, Elizabeth. How can we make our products more relevant for the future generation?
Well, I think you have to, with any design, anything you design, you have to involve the people that you're designing for. And so one way to make products for future generations is to invite them and bring them in to the process of design. And think about the unique needs of people at different stages of life and different ages. And one of the themes that I noticed in the set of submissions that I reviewed for this specific competition was how technology use impacts children uniquely and differently from adults. And that's something that I think as designers, we can be mindful of. And, Prasadd, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that, we need to think about, what are we going to bake into our design process in terms of, standard approaches and constraints. And I think that's something that, we fall into the trap of designing for the 18 to 35 range by default, but it's not representative of the breadth of users and the differing needs, and not in a stereotypical way that, our grandma needs something different, something that's more nuanced and more thoughtful. So, I also think it's really important from an education standpoint to help people understand the design thinking process, and whether or not we're going to, teach our children to be UX designers is irrelevant. But I think we should teach all people certain, tenets of how to think in a way that addresses the needs of human beings. And this is not unique to the discipline of design. And there are things in experimental and design thinking based on human-centered approaches that are relevant for so many different careers, so many different industries. And I do think that there's an opportunity to help children and in schools and elementary schools and high schools to teach some of the techniques in terms of thinking rigor, iteration, feedback loops. Like, those things are really vital concepts, which we can help the next generation to better understand. So, I think that it's a pretty big question, but to sum up, I think, we need to do a better job of being inclusive and inviting the next generation into the problems that we're solving, and then enabling them with the skills to, think about how to be more human-centered from the time they're young.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I think rightly mentioned, even I think Lourd also mentioned the very critical point about empathy becomes also the critical skill that you own of being more human-centered. I think empathy becomes a critical value that might, and you also rightly mentioned that it's not just about an education. You might have to put it down at an education level and not just be very domain-specific like an UX guy would do it. It's like across in the education system itself, we start growing that skill of iteration, experimentation, things, and the world would be much beautiful that we can think about our future generations. So very rightly mentioned on that point. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you again. Congratulations, winners. So let's move on to our next category. That is our silver category. So we have Akansha Bhatt and Siddharth Dharapuri, who have won the silver for their product called Minus, an ecosystem that promotes digital wellness. It actively controls unproductivity or simulated exposure to screens and restricts the unfair exchange of personal data that aggregates it. So congratulations, guys. Congratulations, Akansha and Siddharth.
Good evening, everybody. So here's Akansha Bhatt and Siddharth Dharapuri from National Institute of Design, Bengaluru, Research and Development Campus. So we are here to present Minus, which is uncanny, unusual solution to digital wellness. It was an exciting and enriching journey to really uncover the how of things and why digital wellness is so important in contemporary times.
While we were investigating on the designated topic, we realized that there were several solutions that were already existing in the therapeutic space, and they were working on behavioral change, but somehow they were using a digital screen or a platform to carry this out. And we realized that it seems somehow counterintuitive to be using a screen to actually resolve the problem. So we started to think about it from that point of view. While it seemed like a difficult problem to tackle, that's where we initiated our research.
So yes, as talked about, our Minus ecosystem, it's a combination of hardware and software that habituates us to digital wellness by actively controlling unproductive or simulated exposure to screens. So it's very important to know that digital wellness, or you could say digital addiction on the other hand, is designed. Like everything is designed addiction nowadays. You need to be, so it's basically a fight against this design addiction. So it just becomes more than just therapy. So what we tried to offer was a holistic solution that promotes wellness. At the same time, it contains device use and other things that are basically programming addiction.
a starting point was looking into the current scenario, especially in the Indian context. So while going through the print article where they mentioned about a new generation that's emerging, which is called the Generation Nowhere, a generation plagued by unemployment, lack of opportunities for political or social agency, and the explosion in internet usage. While they're using internet excessively, this addiction is leading to them becoming mellow to the actual realities of the world. So the social, political context, and to the extent that a de-addiction center had to be set up in Uttar Pradesh, Prayagraj district in order to resolve this.
And IT companies, as we know, certain IT companies, like we all know who they are. They're hungry for our data for hyper-personalization. So products are designed to keep us hooked to screens. Like they want to throw ads, they want to throw leads, and they want to make a sale. That's how the whole freemium or the IT business is operating. So we wanted to tackle that solution, and that's what we came up with.
So these are the arguments that we placed in order to support the idea that we presented. Something that we have heard a lot of times, out of sight, out of mind, is something that we took forward and replicated for our model, wherein we are placing your mobile phone away from your reach so that you can't access it. As simple as that.
So we want to induce sort of digital minimalism. So we came up with reflective screens. Like we are right now, we just have emissive screens, and we are so used to the you could say the refresh rate, how glorious these screens look. So we wanted to cut down and go back to our old calculator-based reflective screens, and make the most of them. So we came up with digital minimalism, and it's sort of a philosophy that we want to promote using our product or our ecosystem.
We were also introduced to a concept called memory color effect, wherein we are introducing this gradient bar where the notifications are placed on the pedestal, dividing it into 3 categories: highly important, low priority, and medium priority list. So the idea of how a person put away from the mobile screen in the current scenario where we are living in this ubiquitous world where everywhere requires screens would also create this anxiety. So how do we resolve that? In that attempt, we were trying to build this connection between, say, red color, which speaks of high priority notification or application, linked to the application itself over time. So slowly the person will start associating some low priority applications as something that is not important. So that was a long-term impact that we were looking forward.
And then our prime highlight could be the digital stamina. So we basically decided to put a life bar on the applications, on all the applications that sort of consume the most of our times. So it's basically a stamina, as it implies, how much an application can run before it's exhausted and it stops. So yeah, we put that bar on a lot of those applications that want us to keep hooked. And in order to recharge it, you need to head to the device and lock your phones inside, or devices inside.
Each and every Minus device is also fitted with a camera that helps you take care of your posture in real time. So it will prompt you to sit properly, and at the same time will also let you navigate through your application later on as to how your performance has been throughout the day to give you health prompts.
And yes, we want to symbolically dismantle this attention-based economy. Though we are in the system, we are creating a commodity, but we got to use commodity fetishism in itself to dismantle commodity.
So as a part of our key deliverables, the first thing that helps you link any of your device with the Minus ecosystem is actually an application. This allows you to set your priority list on the basis of different applications or particular persons that you don't want to miss out while you are keeping your device for recharging. It also helps you visualize your daily screen usage, so it keeps you informed about your behavior on these social media applications or screens in general, and it also gives you a quick view through dashboards. The drop-down menu further increases your ability to control the kind of content you are getting exposed to, what we call depersonalization, and also tracking the news sources that you're accessing in the long run.
Then we have the Minus devices that are basically there to box in your devices and just remove them from your site. And they are there to recharge your digital stamina, or as we have talked about, how much you can use those addicting applications. And at the same time, just so they just don't serve one purpose, they also have been fitted with USB charging points and a wireless charging instrument. So it's not just a simple device which will force you to use it. It might also serve a different purpose, which might inject it into your behavior. Link it to charging maybe. So it's charging your stamina as well as your device. So it has two purposes.
So this is how your gradient notification indicator would look like, and the digital stamina will be represented in this particular way in your mobile application.
Then we have the digital stamina. Now we also have a reward system which puts you against your peers, or we have a leaderboard. So the score is determined by your digital stamina or your posture and your screen time. So we have certain multipliers and which basically see that how well you are performing, and they calculate your score, and that puts you on the leaderboard. So it sort of establishes, this is a little gamification part to the whole minus ecosystem, where good habits lead to good behavior and a good place on the leaderboard.
This is basically how you set up your device. You turn on the minus ecosystem, whichever device you own, you pair your device, you place it inside, and then you can only access the priority notification through the screen, as you mentioned, non-reflective display, an LED screen. And once you're done charging your device, that we call the digital stamina, you can access the non-priority or medium priority application.
Then this was like various features listed on the device. We have the camera, we have capacity. This is the minus vault, which can hold up to 3 or 4 devices, and it has wireless charging. And we tried to be very specific with the materials that we might choose in building this up. We want them to be highly recyclable, while at the same time enable the right to repair. So we want them to be highly modular too. Like, you don't need to just throw away the complete device if something goes wrong. You can just replace a module. So yeah, that's what we incorporated in this thing. And these are the various colors that minus could possibly be in various models for minus.
These are the other 2 models, the minus loci and the minus juice box. The screen that you see on the top right is actually how it will appear on the minus vault. As you can see, you can choose a particular application. It shows you any notification, and you have to access it the old school way, which makes it a little irritating for you, which is not as rewarding as it would be while you're scrolling it on the screen. And the other screens, as mentioned on the right bottom, are some of the screens from the application itself.
And as a final concluding thoughts, that digital wellness is a very thought-provoking subject. It may appear as something you can easily choose to practice, but going deeper into it makes us realize that there are complex webs of systems that keep us glued to our screens. So it was very enriching to brainstorm on the issue, where we figured out how personalization has become a retention tactic to throw leads and make sales. How our phones are being converted into shopping malls and us into active customers. So we endeavored to create a system that can neutralize this allure and create healthy associations with our devices.
I can see that whole discussion and the quality of work being evolved from a product to a system level, and that's very well coming out with your thought process. And the depth of understanding that you have at a problem level and then translating that at a system and service level, I think still there's a long way to go. I think you rightly mentioned it, it's a very complex problem. You might have more elements to your system and service, which might ideally bring about a change in behavior that you're trying to do. So first of all, congratulations again for that. Great work. And that's the reason you deserve to be the silver winners. Great work on that part. Okay, so let's hear it from Lourd. Lourd, what do you think about when you evaluated their work? What do you think about their thought process and their approach to solving this problem?
First of all, amazing design, sophisticated design, and convergence, right? You have physical plus digital, right? You're really looking at how do you really control your device using the hardware, right? So which is a unique thing. I've seen many is, having an app and controlling and, having, but this was a very unique thing that we went through when we evaluated, and it was very unique. They have put a lot of effort in really understanding how the entire ecosystem, not just, doing a physical device, but, around it, the entire ecosystem, the app, the ratings, the awards, everything was really picturized well. And, they put a lot of effort. I don't know if it was long term that they did or, short term, but whatever it is, the device is really looking amazing and superb. And I think it's very unique. And I'll be the first buyer because at my home, so we could put all devices when we have some family time, put everything in one box, and then, spend, or Sunday, let's put all the devices in the box. And only if it is like some urgent, right, I would pick up the mobile and use, right? So it had a very unique proposition, and I really like the way they have, picturized the UI, the physical part. I know the complexity because I've been in the product domain, really working with very closely with product. The kind of design that did the output, right, the materials what they have used, it's amazing. So congratulations to Siddharth and Akansha.
Thank you. So, Lourd, what we have also done now, Akansha and Siddharth had a lot of questions, so we have just collated few of them, and one of those questions is for you. Uh, which do you think are the crucial skills, both at the professional and a soft skill level, that we must develop as a designer in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so first of all, what I see, basically, designers can change the world. That is what I've always learned, and really believe that designers can change the world. Not designers can actually create a huge impact, right? So there are a lot of things that we need to focus on, especially a designer is not just like doing like a wireframe or just focus on the visual part, right? How do you really go deep into the research? How do you really understand the product, like what Elizabeth mentioned? How do you really look at an empathetic part of it and really focus on various different aspects of design, and on not just thinking about one you know stuff that is like segregated at individual level, but how do you look at a overall product initiative, right? So that is very important for a designer to really observe, any point you go, really observe what users are doing, how are the environments that is affecting, how would you really look at an end-to-end scenario, right? And from the soft skills perspective, I would really think that they should really need to know the users, right? Really need to understand, not just creating personas or archetypes and just throwing it out, but how do you really consume in your designs? How do you really picturize and keep your users in your monitor whenever you're designing? Is it really reflecting the designs that you want to share to that user? So how do you use all your synthesis and not just keep it when you do your activities in various places and just keep it over there, but how do you take everything and consume? Also from respecting, right? We are in people business. If you see, user experience is about people, right? So I usually tell us people business, right? We're into people business. So how do you really connect with them? How do you really interact, have that empathy towards your individual people that you meet and interact, really know their psychological background? So it is actually, when we are UX designers, we have to call ourselves as psychologists, right? We are working with people's emotion, people's behavior. How do we make their life easy, right? So it's really getting sophisticated, right? Really getting much more deeper, and it's not just interface anymore. So I would say UI, the wireframes, visual design is like maybe 20-25% of the entire work, right? 75% is your overall narratives and stories and the backgrounds that you connect. So that's important, that thing we need to focus on.
We have the other questions for Samir sir per se. But just to add on to the couple of points that you mentioned very critically about the empathy part of it and the whole part about that we are into a people's business, something that I've learned in my career is two of the most crucial undervalued skill is one of them is active listening. Like how well are you listening to your users or even to your business per se? So active listening becomes a very critical part in any business that you're in. And the second thing is how observant are about the environment and the place that you're in, and are you able to gauge that sense of discomfort or sense of comfort and accordingly able to maneuver yourself in a similar manner. I think these are two of the skills which people don't ideally talk about, but somewhere it's an underlying fact that you want them to have it. But this is something that we as designers, we should also upskill ourselves or just chisel our notes with that. Okay, thank you so much, Lourd, for so much of insight into the overall area of skilling ourselves as designers. Next question is to Samir, sir. Considering the dynamic nature of interaction design, should we focus on specialization per se or diverging of skill sets?
There's no discrete answer to this. These are not two discrete points. It's a continuum, right? You have to move from a specialist to a generalist and from a generalist to a specialist. Ultimately, you find your topic of interest and you go deep. You come out, you find another topic and you go deep. You must have heard about a T-type personality, right? I'm skilled at all the things. I am in my own area of interest or my area functional area, and then one skill I am extremely skilled at. That thing no more works. Now it's a pie personality, right? Pie with two legs, wherein you have expertise in multiple areas of your own area of expertise, and you have also expertise in a complementary area. So what I mean by that, let's say you are an interaction designer or UX designer, right? So you have deep expertise in interaction design, but you also need some expertise or deep expertise in, let's say, product management, complementary area, or dealing with visual design or some other area. So that's where the world is moving. So I would invite you to look at right now, start of the career, become a specialist, go towards generalist, then again become a specialist. So again, convergence, divergence, double diamond process.
Okay, moving on to the next question. This question is for Elizabeth. How do we as designers better project the value of design for companies that are still not design matured?
That question certainly resonates. I think a lot of us work in companies that don't resemble some of the most mature processes that we read about in companies that we like to emulate. There is a lot of importance around being able to have the big picture thinking as a designer and to understand where business and user needs and user UX design and technology intersect. And I think part of what the role of design is a bridging role, and you're bridging a lot of different functions in an organization. And it's really important to have a strong understanding of the business objectives and the goals of the business and be able to relate your design decisions back to those goals, and to be very comfortable talking about how design actually changes if the business strategy changes, and really making that connection clear. It's obviously a very tall order for designers, because you can't just be, as you progress in your career, you can't just be an expert in design. You really have to have a lot of expertise and understanding of the business context and the environmental context in which your product or service is being used, as well as the technology abilities and constraints of your organization to deliver on those goals and on that promise. And so I think really helping to articulate back to engineering leaders or to business leaders the cost of certain design decisions or certain technology decisions, and also talking about consequences, implications, intended or not, of design decisions that we're making. So I think that really having that conversation is what starts to elevate design in an organization, and people start to realize that design is not just about UI visuals, which I think many people wrongly associate design only with that piece of design execution. But the more you can talk about strategy and help people connect the dots between a design artifact or a design outcome with what it is that we're trying to work on as a business, the more they'll understand that design can be a through line for organizational change. It takes time, it takes a lot of effort in developing relationships and really proactively reaching out to other people in the organization to learn more about what they do and help them understand what it is that design can offer. And I think more than just talking, I found that it's important to just start, even if you're not invited in. So if you can see areas, even at your span of control in an organization, let's say you're not a design leader, but you're working on a specific product, you can start to ask questions about what are the business goals, what is the strategy, and help to connect the dots. And it requires you to step outside of your comfort zone often as a designer. I mean, I think, I've observed a tendency of some types of designers to be reticent to share their opinions, to push back, and to really just be content to draw what they're asked to draw. And that isn't always strategic, and pushing back against that can be very uncomfortable, but it's a really good muscle to develop. And then I think finally, to balance that sense of urgency and proactiveness, to have design be more elevated in an organization with patience and a sense of timing. You can't go from 0 to 200 overnight. It's going to take some time. And it's developing that sense of when is the right time to push, when is the right time to partner, when is the right time to find that middle path, and when is the right time to really take a stand. And that, it takes a lot of experience. And this is also time when you can, really observe leaders, not just design leaders, but see how they navigate the organizational politics of where you're working, and when they choose to push on the things that are important to them. And you can use that as guidance and a guidepost of when you can push and when not to push. So it's a big question. I could talk for quite a long time on this, because I feel like this is essentially my job as a design leader, is to figure out how to elevate the practice of design at the organization where I am. But that's just a few thoughts.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I think a lot of your points made a lot of sense. And a few of those points I've tried, implemented, and a lot more other things were still open to me. Like one of the points that you mentioned about look up to your leaders, how they're ideally maneuvering through their organizational politics. And that's such a beautiful skill to have, especially with so many stakeholders, so many leadership team that you have in front of you. Sometimes you feel, why are they saying in a similar manner? But there is a way that they're saying it right. So I think a lot of points that you mentioned, I made a note of it. I might just be more mindful about the people or the designers, especially the senior designers around me or the leadership team around me, of how they're ideally tackling this problem. Because I think we have talked about this, like the design has grown like so much exponentially, but the organization have not gone in the similar manner. So we have a lot of under-matured design organizations. So there's like a common challenge that every designer has to face. So thank you so much for that, for enlightening us with your experience so far. Thank you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Siddharth and Akansha. Congratulations again for your win. The most awaited category that we have, the gold category, and it goes to none other than Rishikesh, Aryan Chaudhary, and Harsh Potfode for their digital wellness application called Minus. It focuses on helping users strike the right balance between the digital and the physical part of life based on their device usage. So many congratulations, guys.
Thank you, everyone. I can only imagine how much difficult it must have been for you guys to choose between these amazing submissions. I'm Harsh Potfode here with my teammate Rishikesh. We are final year students of Department of Design in IIT Guwahati. Okay. We'll be presenting our digital wellness project called Minus, which is a digital wellness project, as Swikar mentioned, which focuses on making the right balance between your digital and physical life based on your device usage. All of us, including me, have faced the problem of excessive mobile phone usages, especially during using social media apps. So personally, I have tried every feature in an Android phone to take control of my screen time, but to no avail. I used to skip reminders. I increased time whenever there was a timer going off, uh, which I don't think is a problem with us, but rather than being a problem, I think it's a long learned habit. When we got to know about this challenge, and the theme of this year was digital well-being, we quickly jumped onto it. I'll tell you what our experiences, design processes, and challenges that we faced throughout this fun challenge. We started with reading research papers. We read a research paper named The Race Towards Digital Wellbeing by Alberto, which gave us some really interesting insights about how current apps work and how users interact with it. Basically, the plus and minus points of it. Some valuable insights were like user has so many engaging things to do on their mobile phones that user can't do anything else. Distraction caused by notifications play a huge role in it. It has quite direct effect on person's mental, physical health, as well as decline in face-to-face interactions. Another insight was current apps on digital well-being work just fine when they are in use, but they do not promote the formation of new habits, resulting in users going back to using their phones as earlier. What I think is, if you are making users drive away from their screen, you should have some alternative to give them, some activity to for them to channelize their time. We realized that we can focus on changing their habits rather than curbing the existing ones. We moved on to understanding our users. We made a questionnaire and floated a form, got some genuinely good stats, such as 83% of the respondents feel that social media distracts them the most from doing their intended tasks. And almost 30% of our audience check their phone whenever there is a notification. Interestingly, people know that they have mental and physical impact from excessive phone usage, but couldn't address it. We also found out that brand icon recall and muscle memory drive user to use their phones too much, too often, which I have noticed for myself as well. Also, most people know about digital well-being but do not know how to implement. We also ask them what they want to do if they are not on their mobile phones. Most people like to go out on a walk, cycling, or do home course, etc. We also categorized their responses according to fitness-based hobbies and reading or writing. After the user interviews, our ideas were aligning towards something fitness-related solutions. So, but as our target audience was very diverse and inclusive, we had to think about spatially abled audiences as well. We conducted 2 interviews and asked some specific set of questions with our ideas in mind. We made an empathy map from the insights we got from the live interviews, then a user journey map where we narrated a story of a user from deciding to cut time on screen to failing in doing so. We found some opportunities mapping the user journey. Later, we made user personas and did a competitive analysis of similar apps in Android as well as in iOS. Most apps were focusing on forced blocking of apps and leaderboards and challenges of some sort, which we didn't want to. Finally, we decided our ultimate goal, the redefined brief, which was to channelize the time spent on targeted apps to form some new habit formation and increase productivity.
So, like by the time of like brainstorming phase, we already had many ideas with us. Okay, so we decided that we will implement a basic 3-step solution. Like the first one is like to prevent the user from launching the app. Second one is like to prevent the user from overusing the app. And the third one is like to change their habit from within. So we came up with a 2-day cycle plan. So on day 1, what happens is like the user is not stopped from using the phone. Okay, rather the time that is spent on the targeted app gets converted into minus points. On day 2, if the user has to use the targeted apps again, they have to dissolve these minus points first, eventually striking the right balance before using it again. So how do they dissolve these points, you may ask? So during onboarding, they have to select their preferred tasks or activities. The then translate the earned points into the same activity sessions. Suppose you have scrolled on Instagram for 30 minutes on day one. Okay. So like to use the app again on day two, you'll have to go for like suppose a walk of like 6 kilometers or like meditate for 10 minutes, let's say, and like similar kind of activities. So like the duration of these activities will be decided by our onboard algorithm, and like we also ideated upon edge cases that may occur during the interaction. Like to cater to specially abled audiences, we kept the meditation and hobby section in the preferences. We also kept an emergency usage button in case there is one. And there might be the days when the user won't be able to step out to complete the task. So like to deal with that scenario, we came up with an indoor-outdoor option where they may edit their preferred task. Okay, so like before designing the final solutions, we decided on our design strategies. Our solution has to be scalable, it has to be feasible, it has to be adaptable, it also has to be accessible, and most importantly, it has to be simple. It doesn't have to be a barrier in the day-to-day usage. Otherwise, the user would simply uninstall the application and we'll miss our goal. So we chose a dark theme because it has less strain on our eyes, and we wanted to keep the users calm and relaxed all the time. So these are the onboarding user flows. The user is appreciated for taking a step towards digital wellness, and then assured about our process of making the balance, and then later educate about the need. The user has to set their preferences in the next section, the preferred task, target, pace, and any special ability, if any. Yeah, okay, so this is the landing screen. The dashboard will consist of all the key statistics like highlighted by the minus score. Okay, this is the score that will vary with usage patterns. Okay, so things like screen time, task, like the number of notifications and unlocks, etc., will like make or break the score. The next section will give the user an overview about the task assigned and its progress. The last section will enable the users in shifting notification modes. These modes can also be switched from lock screens by drawing a heart, circle, and a square. And on day two, the theme color of the icons would also change. Yeah, okay, so future scope, talking about the future scope of our project. Okay, so a big limitation that our solution had that we figured out was tracking aspect of indoor activities. We knew it is very easy to track physical activities outside through the hardware capabilities of a device. But then it is quite hard when the activity is a habit. For example, if it's cooking, it is quite hard to track that and like have a reference that like they have done it, so the usage statistics have been balanced. And like it would be interesting if we can take this project further by linking smart devices and trackers that the users like may wear while performing their activities. And talking about the takeaways, we started this project like when we were like quite unaware of our screen usage habits, and like this served as an opportunity to have a deeper insight about our habits as well. So like on day one, we both listed down how we interact with our screens without any bias. So like we had disagreements, some eureka moments, and days with a lot of procrastination. And at the end, we can say that we learned a lot throughout the journey and had fun designing Minus. A detailed case study for our deep dive is available on Behance. We'll post the link in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rishikesh. Thank you, Harsh, for giving us a walkthrough of such a detail and a beautiful case study that you have created. Can we have a lot of hearts and clap for these guys? These guys have done a beautiful and commendable job. I think I can't even imagine the maturity of all the designers that they have so far. We are just not stopping at the solution that we have. We are always thinking about the next step or the iterative step, what will come ahead. I love the maturity that you guys have. So we'll be looking forward to it. And I'll be the first person to go and see your detailed case study in terms of how did you went about your thought process. So yeah, thank you so much for giving us a walkthrough, first of all. So we have some couple of questions that Siddharth, that Rishikesh and Harsh had asked. You would ideally go ahead and ask our jury members. So the first question is for you, Samir. What are the key things that an interviewer looks for in an UX designer?
So the key thing that we look for is not the skill, nor the knowledge. We look for how you apply and what's the process of thinking, really, right? So and the second important thing is the learnability aspect of it. Can you unlearn certain things and relearn them? So these are couple of most important things that we look for, because skill can be taught, knowledge can be given, but the ability to apply in various use case scenarios, and the thinking process that comes through a longish period of time, and therefore that is really important to look at for us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samir. So the next question is for you, Prasad. How do we make the best out of an internship?
Yeah, so that first question, right? Really like the way you guys quickly in a succinct manner finished your presentation. So that's also one of the important things, how quickly you're able to communicate your thoughts. And that would happen in the interview, right? You don't want to really stretch and drag. To coming to that question that Srikar asked, my experience has been whenever I'm talking to the interns and if they say, oh, you're not paying the stipend, I'm not coming for the internship. That indicates a lot. I know stipend is something when, when probably 40, 50 years back, right? When people really needed some money to even go from one place to another and earn, but not today. And that surprises me. And I had experiences where students have also said they didn't even bother about stipend because they were so much hungry for knowledge. So that's point number one. The point number two, I would strongly encourage you to interview the interviewers. And I'm presuming you are the last year students, so you'll be anyway getting into the industry. But if there are students around who are in their second and the third year, interview the interviewer. You don't need to go there and say, okay, you go ask the questions, I will answer. Did I do good? The interviewer needs to do good as well. So you need to ask the questions to the interviewer. Are you the best person to guide me? What are your credentials? What are your goals and objectives for having me over for an interview, for an internship? So don't forget this question. Forget everything else, but don't forget to do this job. So during the entire internship, it's okay to feel blank, lost, but don't get into how do I ask this question? Would I look stupid? I better keep mum. Break that ice because you're getting into being a consultant, being a professional. Professionals talk out there. They have an opinion. They have questions to ask and hound. I really enjoy when my students hound me with questions because then I know that you guys are alive and make me alive. So definitely hound the questions, and the more stupid questions you have, the better, because it will avoid making stupid mistakes. And then you clear the backlog and you move forward. So that's what I sense. Be ready to be rubbished, right? You may get excited. Oh, I have created the screen. I'm so excited. It will become, I'm expecting others to say good, and someone would say, oh, this is not going to work. That's where your learning will actually start. So let go. If someone says, this is not going to work, this is your time to ask those questions and understand and learn as to how why your designs are not working. So those are my few thoughts, and hopefully you use it. If you're this third year students, you use it and tell me how does it go.
Thank you, Prasad. Thank you, Samir. Thank you so much, Rishikesh and Harsh. Again, let's have a round of applause for these winners here. They have done a spectacular job. So with this, the evening comes to a beautiful end. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Jason, for giving your time and being so generous in terms of sharing the insights and helping us all grow as designers. And thank you so much, everyone, for being such a wonderful audience and appreciating our winners as well. Most importantly, YUJ, I think YUJ is always funding the right talents and identifying the right people. And I think we all could vouch to that YUJ is the best place to be in terms of growth and learning perspective. So be open to it. Just drop in us a message or just drop in us a message or send out your resume. We are here for people who are here for making a difference from a design perspective. So looking forward to it. Good night, stay well, and most importantly, stay digitally well. Thank you.